entire world is being really smart.
Welcome to Smart is Sexy, the podcast where we discuss self-development, growth, business, spirituality, and becoming a smarter, sexier human. I am your host, Kelsi.
And I'm Celeste. Welcome to our show, y'all. If you haven't yet, hit subscribe, leave us a review, and send to a friend. Today we're discussing friendship. So we're talking about how to be a good friend and also when to end a friendship. When is it time and how do we do it?
Yeah, we're also going to talk about how to be a bad friend. The other thing, okay, we're in like a giggly mood. You guys are in for a treat.
I need dinner.
No one's eaten. This is insane.
Well, before we get started, what's your good news minute?
Good news minute is that the 4th of July is coming up. It's one of my favorite holidays. Last year I had COVID. That sucks.
Yes, we did.
But
you just like really like America.
Yeah, I think it's not so much like the whole America thing. It's just like it's like a very summery. Like a lot of holidays are in the winter, which is great. But like it's like you have a barbecue. You have like a barbecued hamburger.
Yeah.
If you're vegan, you're just unhappy.
That's
if you
true.
hate America, you're just unhappy.
Yeah.
But like, I just feel like
It's a fun holiday.
yeah, it's like fun. You're outside, you're doing things. It's just like
No, I
a
feel
very
that.
fun, festive holiday where people are like
Yeah.
excited to be outside and it's warm.
That's true.
So
America gets like a lot of shit, but like it's a good day to remember like we have a lot of like rights. My mom always says it. My mom's an immigrant, so she grew up in India. And so it's funny because whenever somebody hates on America, you would think that she wouldn't care because she's not from
Yeah.
here. And she like will come to America's defense. She'll be like, you don't know like how many rights you have. If you don't like it, go somewhere else. I'm like, Mom.
but it is true though, because I mean, listen, I also say some things that I'm like, this sucks. Just like, I feel like we have some weird
we
shit
have
going
issues,
on.
but so does everyone.
Every country has their weird things. And I do feel like even there are some countries that as a woman, I'm not even allowed to complain. I'm not even allowed to vote. I'm
Sure.
not even allowed to protest something that I don't like.
That's true.
So I do feel very lucky to live here. I
Same.
also, like, my grandpa used to like cry every time he heard the national anthem.
And he was an
Every
immigrant
time.
too, right?
Yeah, he's from.
It's so funny, yeah, because my mom, I'm like, Mom, you're not even from here.
No, but he really just like has so much love for this country.
So does my mom,
and
yeah. She's so thankful for like the
So,
opportunity because
yeah.
like, and that she talks about it all the time. So it is funny because we definitely complain a lot and rightfully so in the sense that there are things that people believe in, but I completely agree. It's like, we're so lucky that we even can
but we
you know.
are able to fight for it. So yes, it sucks that certain things happen, but
Yeah.
we're able to be in a place now that we can fight for certain rights, which is
Yeah.
great. But I'm going to Pocatello to see Mans and his family, so we're gonna have like a barbecue.
Fun fact that I just learned, Pocatello's in Idaho.
Yes, it
So-
is. Pocatello is in Idaho.
Me,
Yeah.
geography major again.
What is your good news minute?
Well, so for the audience, a little backstory here. Kelsi and I used to live together for 3 years. And then in almost a year ago, I was like, I'm moving out. And I was like, I'm going to put my big girl pants on and I'm going to live by myself and I'm going to move out and it's going to be great.
I'm going to Jen's.
I'm going to Jen's. And then recently I have bamboozled you to moving back in with me. And this is my good news minute. So now we're looking for a place back so that we're looking for a nice 3-bedroom. And
Because we
then
have to have room for the studio.
we have to have room for the stew. Nice little 3-bed, 3-bath. We looked at a beautiful place the other day that was like just so cute. So we're super excited about that. So that's my good news minute. And if anyone's wondering why, I love living alone in the sense that like I like my own space and all that. But like at the same time, I was like, okay, we had so much fun living together. And then also I just get I'm like, I'm bored. I'm lonely. Kels, what are you doing? What are you doing? But it's also the perfect balance because you're like only live in LA like 1/3 of the time.
Yes. So I am going to be splitting time between Logan, Utah and here, which is a crazy thing because like 5 months ago, if you would have told me that, I would have been like, I don't even know where Logan, Utah is on the
Right.
map. But I'm going to be splitting time. So it will be nice to like have someone here and then someone there.
No, and it's perfect too. Yeah, because I was like, okay, because you get used to living on your own. Like you get so, and I really do like love being by myself. But I was like, but then there's like both sides of it, you know? Because then sometimes you're like, I mean, I will go days without like really seeing somebody.
I think alone time's really good for people. Like I think it's really great for people to spend time with themselves.
Yes,
I do think that's important. But I also feel like too much alone time is an unhealthy thing.
Yeah.
And I do think we just got out of a pandemic, and I mean, I guess people will argue that we're still in it, but that's true.
I feel like we're like out of it.
But like as far as like the stay-at-home order, we were in that for a long time. So I think that like now like being alone too much is also not a good thing.
Yeah. So I'm super excited, and it's like great because you're there half or three thirds. Hold on.
Oh, 3/3 is a whole. three thirds just makes one whole.
I can't do math. In case anyone didn't know that, that's one thing. That's one talent I don't have is math.
Okay.
Anyways, moving on. That was my good news minute, but we can get into it now. Okay, so we're going to start about how to be a good friend. I feel really qualified to have this conversation.
I feel like I was a really good friend apparently because you want to move back in.
It's
so
true.
like I nailed the friendship
I feel
thing.
like we are experts at this. And I think that, I don't know if people think that, I don't know what they think about our dynamic. I know everyone thinks we have a really good partnership, which they would be right. But I don't know if they think it's just always like smooth sailing or like, I don't know. I have no idea. So I'm here to tell you that we are experts in how to be a good friend because we, not only do we have to navigate a friendship, we have to navigate a business partnership. And then also a roommate-ship. And so
we have a lot of ships.
we have so many ships.
And the best
Captain.
ship is a friendship.
Okay. So what are your thoughts? How do you be a good friend?
Well, something that I value in a good friend is a big one for me is loyalty. And obviously no one is just like blindly loyal. I don't even know if that made any sense, but I don't know if that's obviously not a good thing, but I do value someone who is really loyal. I think we live in a city where it's incredibly challenging to make good friends and to find a good circle of people that you trust and love.
Right.
But I think loyalty is something that at least I really look for. And I think all people should look for because it shows at the end of the day that when you have someone who's loyal to you, no matter good or bad, you have someone that's going to stand by you.
No, loyalty is so important. And I also think, something that I look for is like, before I even get to the place of you being loyal to me, what does your character look like on your own? Like what kind of a person are you? Like who do you show up as? And this is actually a conversation you and I had recently because there was somebody in my life, just a friend of mine, and they were always good to me. But we started noticing they were pretty trash to a lot of other people. And they were doing some very shady things to other people.
Yeah.
And I never had a personal issue. There was never anything that happened with me. But then you made a good point. You were like, yeah, but if they're doing this to them, there's nothing stopping them from doing it to you. So it's like it's not even just going to be about me. It's going to be like, who are you as a person?
Yeah,
too?
absolutely. I agree. The other thing I think is just consistent. And this is, you can be a consistently shitty friend or you can be a consistently good person.
Right.
Obviously, there are going to be times, especially if you have a really long friendship with people, say you have a lot of high school friends. So there are going to be times where maybe some of the friends you've been friends with since high school or even before that, they may go through rough spots and you guys may kind of fall in and out.
Yeah.
But you guys have longevity in years. If you've been friends with someone for like 2 years and they're consistently not being consistent,
right,
then after a period of time, you're going to be like, you don't really you don't follow through on your word. You kind of are really wishy-washy.
That's a good point too, because people do have phases in life. And so I think like part of being a good friend is understanding those phases.
Yes.
There are times where, especially with, you have to understand who people are and what they prioritize. You might have friends who have kids, and so they can't call you every other second of the day and they can't come to your rescue all the time because they have kids. It's also, I think like that's part of being a good friend is understanding who someone is. In my case, for my friends, I would hope that they understand that she prioritizes her career, she being me. And so I think to be in my life as a friend, you have to understand that dynamic, that I will pick work and that I will, at least for right now, and not all the time. And then you can make that decision. Am I willing, to be a friend, understanding that? And for me, like what I do, because I know I prioritize that a lot, is I try to make up in different ways. I try to I'll sit on FaceTime with you, or be there when you call me about your boyfriend, or whatever you have going on, or do a girls' night out or whatever. Like I do try to make up for it in other ways so that I can also be a good friend. But I think on the flip side is, know where somebody's at in their life and then decide, are you willing to do that or not? Like if a good friend of yours is, I don't know, in a different phase of life, like you can't take it personal. Like you can't ask somebody to stop their life. Like, hey, don't have kids because like I'm trying to have a girls' night out,
Yeah,
like
for
that's
sure.
not cool either.
No, and it's going to take a little bit of like learning and a little bit of like mistake making at times and probably some hurt feelings, but
Totally.
both people understanding that like, again, like you said, you are in a different stage in your life.
Yeah. And I think too, you have to like understand and respect people's boundaries. And like just because you're good friends with somebody doesn't mean it's like always going to be a free for all. And I think that's something that a few people could maybe take notes of, like you can't, it's not like just an open-ended, what's the word I'm looking for? Like it's not a hall pass, to just like try to dominate somebody's life, or I don't know, things like that I think about where I'm like, just understanding where people are as we all are kind of in our mid-20s or 30s or whatever. I think, we're not in high school anymore to the point where it's like, I have a few friends that I'm like, I know you don't work, but I do.
Yeah.
So it's like, you don't have like a free reign of like, maybe always blowing my phone up, or if I don't answer, calling me, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like, there's a dynamic there.
I think before even being able to respect a person's boundaries, you really do have to know who someone is. Because if you don't really know who they are, then you're not able to even begin to understand where their boundaries are. So like sometimes a person's not going to come to you and give you exactly what that boundary is, but you need to be able to pick up on what your friends need at that time.
Yeah. And if you're going to be close friends with someone, like find out how they grew up, find out, like what that like was like for them.
Yeah.
And I think that plays a role.
And something that, I have found being in LA, and I don't know if it's like this in other parts of the country, I'm only speaking from my perspective, that a lot of times people in LA haven't really been happy for successes we've had or relationships that we've had, or like there's certain friends that I don't want to like tell my relationship about because they may subconsciously, they may be like, oh, well, all my shit's the fact that he's not responding to you when it is telling. And I'm like, actually, the fact that he's not responding to me is just because he's been at work all day, and not they really do project their insecurities back onto you.
I've even run into circumstances where I've been friends with some people even for a long time, and I'm like, damn, it's crazy because I know that like you're just not happy for me, and it has nothing to do with me, and it has to do with like your own
insecurity in life, yeah.
But it's a weird feeling because it's actually happened to me in like the middle of a conversation one time where I was like, oh, what do I say now? Because it's like, and they will throw that, or they'll tell you, why somebody is not for you or things like that. But it's pretty crazy. And I'm like, there's a difference between being honest with somebody, which I think you should always be honest. If I ask you if this outfit's horrible, and it is, you better tell me.
I'll tell you if it's ugly.
Yeah, you must. Like you have, like maybe try something else. But like, there's a difference between that and like purposely like putting somebody else down. What's the word I'm looking for? Like when you kind of try to steer somebody in the wrong direction, like maliciously.
Yeah. So that you look better or feel better or
Yes. It's like a weird, like, and yeah, I mean, for me, it's not something that would ever fly anymore because I've really come into my own and I'm super intuitive. But like when I was younger, like in my early 20s or like late teens, like that's something that was common. Like that happened a lot. I remember being like 20, 21, 22 and having friends or people I thought were friends, and they would do that kind of shit. And like, I feel like you can always pick it up. Your gut will kind of tell you.
Well, something you can pick up when you leave them not feeling super great about yourself. That's
true.
That's always a very telling sign of when you're around any person, that if you leave not feeling good, you'd be like,
yeah,
I don't really want to be around people who put me down. all the time. So
No, that's crazy. Putting
Yeah.
some, I mean, that's just nuts.
yeah,
That's
definitely.
a red flag.
And then another one that I've had to work on in the past is when I love a person, whenever they're having something that's like going wrong in their life, I want to like fix the problem
Yeah.
for them. And instead of just like stopping and just listening to like what their issue is, I have had to learn to like not fix their problem all the time.
Right.
Versus just allowing them to come to me, vent, and them fixing their own
That
problem.
one's interesting because your intention was in the right place.
Yeah, but it also, I've been told this by several people that you just want to come in and fix the problem, and I just want to talk to you about it. And it took me a while,
Right.
and I may not always be great at it to this day. My intention is never to like think that you can't handle something. It's just to be
Right.
more protective.
No,
but it's still
totally.
not right. You have
Right.
to give people the space and the room and the grace to like, you know, kind of come
Learn.
to terms with things on their own and learn from that. And I have
Yeah.
not always been that great about that in the past. It's something that I had to really work on. But again, I still might be at
Yeah.
fault at it and have to catch myself at certain
No,
times
it's
now.
true. And it's your intention is always in the right place, but I get what you're saying because we can't siphon other people's growth and we can't soften their fall. We can't, you know, take away the moments that would make them grow. So I do agree with that. And I think along the lines of that is another thing that I've never had an issue with this personally, but I've seen it in other people is like, you can't be mad at somebody for making a decision you wouldn't have made. You know, like that's not something like I've personally dealt with, but I've seen it in other people where they're like, oh, I'm not talking to so-and-so because they did this. Like they went back to their ex or something like that. You know what I mean? It's like, you can't really be mad at, like everyone has to live their own life. You don't know if that person is going to, even if they have a fall from grace, you don't know that that's not going to be the thing that makes them stronger. You don't know that it's not going to be the thing that gives them purpose, that creates their next business, that puts them in a new city, that propels their life along. Like you don't know what's in their fate, what's in their destiny. So like that's something that I've always kind of been like, you can't really, like you can give your opinion, of course, if they ask, but it's like you can't be mad at someone for just making a decision that you wouldn't have made. I don't think that's fair.
Yeah. And I think there's a difference between being pulled into a situation, because I've also had friends where I'm like, okay, this is getting exhausting because all we do when we hang out is talk about your problem and your ex, and then that's
Right.
it.
And
then
that's it.
So I'm not talking to you
Yeah.
because you're going back to your ex. I'm just removing myself from the situation
now draining
because
for
now
me.
this is draining, and no matter how many times I've given you advice or been there for you, you continue to make the same decision.
Yeah.
Fine, do your thing, but I now have to remove
That's a good
myself.
point.
So there's a difference.
There's a difference. The biggest one that is like always going to be, I mean, not that it's going to be like the deciding factor because this won't happen often, but something that I know, like this person is like somebody I truly, truly, truly deeply trust as a close friend, is energetic safety. This one's a little like challenging for me to explain, but and I only have it with like a very, very select few people. But it's like this feeling of safety of like, if something happens, I know, like physically, like if we're together, if we're on a trip, we're at dinner, like whatever, I know that like I'm safe with you, right? Like whatever that means. I know that like,
I'm not going to sell you off.
yeah, like if I get too drunk, I know that you're
Yeah.
around. Or if I get into a bad situation or I need help or anything like that. Or like, if I can't figure something out, I just know like, cause I've been around people in the past where I'm like, this is cool, you're a nice person, but if some shit went down right now, you don't have my back. And that's okay. But for me, like, especially like as I started to get older and like realize like it's kind of quality over quantity for me now, that was a big one for me. I'm like, do I feel energetically safe with you? Do I trust you? And I always ask myself, like, would I trust this person with money? And if the answer is no, which it usually is, I'm like,
Oh, wow. Interesting.
I always think about that. I'm like, would I trust them with my with money?
What a good question.
Yeah, and that's always kind of telling to me because that kind of tells me like where I view you. Like, do I think you kind of have your shit together and like there's a trust between us or no? And there's a lot of people where I'm like, no.
Yeah, no, that's a great, wow, money's an interesting one.
That's
Wow.
like that's just like a way that I like think about it. But
No,
yeah,
it's
so
good. I'm interested
Yeah.
in like a way of like, I haven't ever done that, but that's a good point.
it's like so- it's-
money is something that can change a person or bring out their true colors of who they really are. So that's
Yeah.
an interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I look at too, like, when you're picking good friends, like look at them and in their other relationships. I mean, it's kind of hard to like
even their romantic relationships. Cause like realistically, if you're out here cheating on your significant other,
yeah.
when you're a cheater, you're a cheater.
Yeah.
You'll
True.
cheat at anything to get ahead. You'll cheat at anything to get your way.
Right.
So what you could cheat me out of money.
That's
you
true.
could cheat me. Like there's
Yeah.
a lot of things that if you're not a loyal companion
Yeah.
romantically, then
Yeah.
most likely I don't really want to be your friend because
Facts.
then you're missing values and morals that I have.
Well, the other thing too that like I think another reason you and I have such a good friendship and partnership and roommateship is that you
We have so many good ships.
there's so many good ships.
Out to port they go.
One thing that you, even when I hated it, which I never really hated it, I always really appreciated it. You always told me, like when I would tell you a scenario of me with another friend or me with a romantic relationship, you'd be like, yeah, you're in the wrong. And I was like, fuck. But like, I appreciate it because you need somebody, like that's a real friend to be like, I got bad news for you. You're in the wrong.
There's a way to say it. Like there may have been times that I probably didn't handle things so great, but I definitely think there's a kind way to tell
Yeah.
a good friend or even, a family member or
Yeah.
even your significant other, like, hey, I really love you and I have your back, but you didn't handle that right.
Yeah,
And I want you to be a better version of yourself.
And that's what it is. Like, and that's that I said this on a couple episodes ago, but our friend Marco says it. He says, I love you enough to call you to something higher. And
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to put it because it's so true. Like, I'll be like, oh my God, this, and this happened. And I'll tell like a different friend and they'll be like, yeah, fuck them, blah, blah, blah. And then I'll tell you and you'll be like, yeah, you're 100%
I
in the
think
wrong.
all of your friends are following the same Instagram accounts.
No, it's so funny. And so like, but that is so important in like choosing a friend and being a good friend is like, you got to tell somebody like, yeah, no, you're the problem.
Yeah, for sure. Like, hey, I still support you, but that was not your best move.
Not your best
that
work.
that is being a good friend is to tell someone when they're wrong.
Yeah. And like, you have to like just be, and when they're in the right, be happy for them and like, don't try to steer them in the wrong direction. And then when they're in the wrong, you gotta course correct, it just depends on your intentions.
Well,
Funny.
so, okay. We always tell you guys to like send in things you want us to talk about. And finally somebody did. Well, actually 2 people did and they sent us a lot of good topics. So we're going to get back to the other ones later. But someone asked, which we thought was a perfect way to like wrap this episode up, was someone asked what are the signs and how to get out of a bad friendship.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really interesting because sorry, anyone who's listening to this, I've had a lot of bad friends.
Yeah.
Like a lot.
Well, especially where we live.
Yeah, but even before moving here,
True.
I have had a lot of really terrible friendships.
Right.
And it's always been very challenging because when I love someone, you want to like love them no matter what. You want to be loyal. Something that I can say about myself is I'm an extremely loyal person.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other issues I have, but I am very loyal. And I think that it is very challenging to know when is the time to then cut a friend off.
Right. Especially if you guys have like longevity.
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
Yes.
Because like people change and like it's hard, I think, because you realize like, damn, like we were so close in high school or in whatever. And it's like we have so many years between us. We're just different people now.
Yeah. And there are even like some friends, I don't talk to a lot of my friends from high school. I have one girl I've known since I was in kindergarten who we weren't even that good of friends in high school, but we're good friends now because as we grew up, we kind of grew into ourselves more. And now we like are just closer. We stayed really who we are to the core and we just remained friends. And then I came to terms with the fact that a lot of the people in my life, well, I got to tell you, COVID really opened up my eyes to some bullshit where I was like, wow, I don't want to be your friend. And I actually don't want you in my life at all.
It's very true.
And it made me cut a lot of people off.
Yeah. And you know what? Sometimes we need that. Sometimes you need to get really honest with yourself and you need to cleanse the people out of your life because we said this on a couple episodes ago. Show me your friends and I'll show you your future. Like if you are surrounding yourself with people who do not have the goals that align with your goals, like you're playing yourself. If you have a certain like lifestyle that you want to live, like surround yourself with those people. Because if you're like, oh, I want to be, healthy and happy and fit and rich and all of this, but you're surrounding yourself with like a bunch of people who are literally the opposite, like you'll just be the next one of that.
Yeah. And I think that not that you shouldn't be friends with people like this, but a sign that you should probably keep it to a minimum, like your interaction, is when you feel really drained or when you feel I have had friends that I leave their presence and I'm like, I'm exhausted or I feel terrible about myself.
Yes.
And not because of anything. They weren't putting me down. They weren't their energy. They didn't like who they were.
Yes.
So I was absorbing all of that. And I'm like, wow, why do I feel so tired? Why do I feel insecure?
Because
like,
their
I don't-
energy shedding.
Yeah. So
And you're picking it up because you're in the room.
Yeah. And so that's a really, and I don't think a lot of people even necessarily know what that means. So you don't even know what's going on to recognize it. And it took me a long time to be like, why am I so exhausted? And why do I feel like I'm like, now I don't like myself. And I'm like, I went into that room feeling great.
The biggest one. If you leave and you feel like you don't like yourself or you feel insecure and you don't usually feel that way on your own, you feel it after leaving somebody or a group of people. That's exactly what that is they're shedding their energy and you are in the room. So you're picking it up and now you're going to leave feeling that way.
And it's hard because I don't think those people were necessarily meaning to do that.
That's the thing.
Just, so for me, I just had to limit. I knew once I figured out what was going on, I knew that going into certain interactions with them, I was like, okay, I'm going to like kind of brace myself and I'm going to know that this is how I feel when I leave them. We've been friends for a long time. I don't want to just fully cut them out because we do have a nice friendship, but I just know, okay, I'm going to limit time limit. And I'm going to know that when I leave, I'm going to have to like go take a nap and like a bath.
Yeah. So that's the other thing too, is like, I think it's like, you have to know yourself also, because you have to know like what feeling right now belongs to me and what feeling does not belong to me. What did I just pick up off of somebody else? And like, if you talk to my mom, she'll tell you to do like a protection prayer before you go out and then to like sage the house when you come in and you know, all of that. Yeah. She'll always say things like that. Especially my mom's big thing is like, if you're ever drinking alcohol or you're around alcohol or
that's
drugs.
the thing too, is I do think if those are certain people you're around, I do think you should not drink around them or watch how much you're drinking.
That's what my mom will say.
It almost makes it harder for you to be able to know what's going on and protect yourself a little bit more. Cause there's certain people I will not drink around.
Same. And that's the other thing too. Like you really have to be smart and you have to say like, what am I going to this friendship gathering for? And what am I like, because if you're just going to, you know, have a good time or going to a dinner or a birthday and you have to show up, that's fine. But if you're, you know, get real with your expectations, I think that's part of it too. What are you trying to get out of it? If you're trying to get like a lifelong friendship, but you're leaving feeling like super drained and like it's feeling like shit, I got news for you.
Yeah. And we all have different friends for different reasons.
Exactly.
So if you go into, there's certain friends that I have that we get together, we hang out, we enjoy each other's company, and then we go back to our lives. And that is what it is. And then I've had some friends that are so life-sucking, like a leech, where I'm like, oh my gosh, where I don't want to pick up when they call.
Yep.
And I don't really even know how it got to that point, but I think that the more I grew into myself, the more I started to feel better about myself, the more I understood, oh, this is what is going on. You actually haven't changed. You've actually been the same way. It's just that I've changed. And now that, I mean, I had to cut someone off where I had to keep our interactions really brief. I wish them well. There's no like, but there's no like hatred. There's no malicious, you know, feelings towards them. But I definitely don't have a desire to see them or talk to them because after some time I was constantly like, wow, you're an exhausting person to be around. And you only call me when you need things. You only hit me up and ask me how I'm doing. There's one friend in particular. He does not listen to this podcast, so it's fine. I know this. It would always, when we lived together, it would always drive you insane when he would call me because he would only ask how I was so he then could talk about himself. And we would hang up and you would go, that drives me insane.
It drove me crazy.
He only called you and asked how you were because you've told him you don't ever ask how I am. So he only did that so then he could launch into his spiel about himself.
Drove me insane.
Yeah. And he's not a bad person.
Yeah.
I think he just doesn't really know how to be a super good friend. And there are certain qualities of him that I'm like, if I were ever in trouble or needed something, yes, he'd show up and he'd be there. But the day-to-day friendship, it just got to be to a point where I'm like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
So if something goes wrong and you really need me, like really, really need me, then call me. But I felt like we were better off as like having a distant friendship than like the close friendship that we once had.
Well, I think that's the other thing too, is like sometimes I struggled with this for a long time because I would be like, I don't really want to hang out with this person, but they're not a bad person.
Yeah.
And that was hard for me for a while to grasp because I was like, shouldn't I be friends with them? Because they're not a bad person. They didn't do anything wrong. But I think the answer is no, because sometimes people are not bad people.
Of course.
They're just not necessarily like
The people for us.
they're just not the people for us. And that was something for a long time because I was like, I want to like you. Like, I really do. 'Cause I'm like, you're a good person. Like, you didn't do anything wrong. But I was like, I don't want to hang out with you. And I would notice it because I would like, same thing. I don't want to take your calls. And then we would make plans and I never really wanted to go.
Yeah. There are some people who I like really look forward to hanging out with them. And I like, it's usually the people that I can't see as often because like we both have a lot of crazy things going on in life.
Yeah.
But when I'm excited to see a person,
That's
that is
telling.
Yes. And when I'm always like, oh, I have to get together with so-and-so. That's never a good sign.
No, it's not. And I've noticed it with a few people where I'm like, damn, and then the other one that I'll notice that I don't think these are the friendships for me anymore is like when they feel performative, like when you feel like you have to be on or you have to perform.
Yeah.
To me, that's so draining. Like I want to be my real self with you. And I want, and
Because
I
when you have a
always
bad
know-
day, you can't perform.
I don't want to do it. And honestly, like one thing I really have noticed, because I always was like growing up, and I mean, even now, like I've always been a very social person. Like it's always been very easy for me to make friends since the time I was like, I would say like middle school and up. Like before that, I was really shy when I was little, but my parents would like force me, and I was an only child. So like I had to, like once I grew out of the phase of like spending all my time by myself at the library, I had to start like actually talking to other people. And
Last week she talks about loving men on motorcycles. Then she goes, when I got out of the phase when I was always at the library by myself.
I was always by myself at the library, and I would never go to a friend's house, nothing. And my parents started to like freak out because they were like, because I didn't want to sleep anywhere. Not that my mom really
Were you
would've
like a
let
really
me.
quiet kid?
I was with strangers, but
Okay.
not with like my parents. No, I would
wouldn't
be
shut
like
up.
doing like full concerts.
You
and,
would
like,
always
wouldn't
tell
shut
them
up.
about your science projects.
Always. I would be
Okay.
like cartwheels. I thought I was Britney Spears, like the whole thing. I made them buy me a microphone. But like with other people, with strangers, like I was very shy, like very shy. And I would read a lot of books. I didn't have siblings. I would spend a lot of time in the library. So then my parents were like, yeah, no, this is not going to work. So they forced me to learn. And when I say force me, I mean, they would be like, go talk to these random strangers, and I would have to do it. And so anyways, long story short.
That's so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
How am I just
But-
now learning this?
Yeah, this is a funny story. It started in a pool one day. Like I wasn't in the pool because I can't swim. It's a long story. But anyway, so my parents would do this thing where they would force me to like learn how to make friends, which I'm very thankful for now because now it's very easy for me. It wasn't always like that. But anyways, so because of that and because I was always so social, I always thought like the more the merrier. And I still am like so thankful to have like really good relationships. And I love like so many of the people in my life, like I'm just so obsessed with. But then as you get older and you work and you have different priorities, you kind of realize like, damn, the ones that you have to perform for, you're just like, I can't do these anymore. And maybe I could in high school or maybe I could in my early 20s, but I'm like, I can't do it anymore. I can't fake it with you anymore.
I'm definitely not more the merrier. I'm actually not the more the merrier person of anything in my life. I am definitely like quality over quantity, and you better show up as quality. And that goes for anything over life. It's how I am with clothes. It's how I am with.
You've always been that way
I'm
since
that
we've
way
been friends,
across the board. Actually, the way you do one thing is the way you do all things is actually a very accurate.
It makes a lot of
thing
sense
for my
you.
life.
Yeah.
Because I'm not someone. I don't have a ton of friends. I have a lot of people who are acquaintances that I see them. I'm like, oh my gosh, hi, how are you? And we can get along, and we may even meet up and have a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
But I'm not someone who I'm like, I'm not a girl's girl. I like girls. There are girls that in my life that I like, but I'm not a girl's girl. I'm not like, you are a great girl's girl.
I'm like the epitome of a girl's girl.
And I am not. Like, I'm just like, what do y'all talk about?
Yeah.
Like,
I know. It's so funny too, because I'm like, that is how it's so funny because you and I have always been so close, but that is one thing we differ on. Cause I love like the
girls' night,
girls, anything. Like I love
when people say like, oh, we should have a girls' night. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Like that's a name? Like, shouldn't we just have a night? We'll have dinner. I don't like, I've never understood. Like, I don't understand what it means to be like, oh, let's have a girls' night. I'd be like, why?
No, it's so funny. And I love it too, because you'll literally be like, so that's all we talk about, like the whole night. We just talk about this kind of shit, and I'm like, yeah, that's what we do. That's what girls.
I'm like,
are.
that's what girl. Okay,
Yeah.
And I have nights where I like hang out with a girlfriend, and
No,
like,
I know.
like if I have other than you, I have like a few other girls that are friends, and I like we'll sit and like we'll hang out, we'll catch up, we talk about like work and who we're dating and like what's going on. But then it's like the large group of girls. I'm always like, whoa, this is like a whole other world.
You and I have always differed on that.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I live for that. Like, I love the homegirls and the big girls' nights out. It's so, but it is funny
Like the more the merrier. I'm like, there's 6 girls going to this.
Yeah.
Like you have 6 girls coming.
Yeah.
They were all free that you liked at the same time. Whoa.
That's so funny. No, I love that. That's your personal
So
brand.
which is crazy because then I started a company, like an all-female team. So
yeah,
like,
but that's different because it's work driven. And
yeah. So it's just funny. And it's not that I don't like them.
Yeah.
It's just that I am just a person that I am very selective on the type of girls, friends that I'm going to have. I've always gotten along better with guys.
Yeah. Okay. So then that's another thing that you and I talk about all the time, because I'm the opposite. Like, I am not a guy's girl.
Yeah.
Like, I cannot just hang out with a guy, or like, I mean, I have like my one like childhood, or my few like childhood best friends that are guys, but that's different because we grew up together. You cannot just like throw me in a room of guys. Like, I cannot hang. I don't know what any of you were talking about. I don't care. Like, I just can't. I can't do it. I can't hang with the boys. But like the girls, I can do all day and all night. Like, I feel like that's super easy for me. So yeah, we've always been the opposite on that. It's so funny.
Yeah. I don't really even know how we got to this.
I don't know either. I'm not sure.
But
back to the conversation about ending.
How to get out of a friendship. To be honest, I think overall, she specifically asked how to end a friendship that is toxic and no longer serving you.
Okay.
To answer her question in short, we can continue on after this, but to answer her question in short, I think the best thing you do is that you put up boundaries that work for you, and naturally the friendships that don't respect those boundaries, they're going to fall off.
That's true.
The second that I put up boundaries with certain people, that those boundaries then wouldn't allow those people to like use and abuse my time and my energy, they fell off because they weren't getting what they needed anymore.
I was just going to say that. And that's the thing, like with a boundary, if somebody's upset by your boundary, it's because they were benefiting when you didn't have said boundary. Yeah. And that's not cool. That doesn't work. Like, your boundaries have to come first. And so whatever that looks like, whether it's like time or,
money for some people.
It could be anything. Yeah. It could be anything like that. Like, and if you want to attempt to keep the friendship, then clearly communicate that. But if you're like, I just don't like this person just doesn't feel good to me, then I think it's like you just keep your distance. Like, I go back and forth with this, but there's a lot of people who think like you need to tell somebody else like exactly what they did wrong, or exactly, you shouldn't ghost anybody. Like, there's people who believe that. But I also kind of feel like not everything needs to be this deep conversation. Sometimes it's like, it's not really a vibe for me right now. I'm sorry. It is what it is. Maybe it is for now. Maybe it is forever. Like, I don't know. And I'm just like, I might be a little distant because I don't think that everything needs like a ton of like explanation all the time. Obviously, if you're like very, very close with somebody, like it's going to be a conversation 100%. For sure. But if it's like a casual thing, I think it depends on how close you are with a person too. And like what you want. If you want it completely ended, or if you just want to like shift the dynamic. Yeah.
I know that I didn't necessarily want my friendship to completely end with this person, but just when I did put up the boundaries and the walls of like, okay, you're not going to treat me the way you've been treating me. He was just like, well, this doesn't work for me. That is what it said to me, because now we don't really talk. Again, there's no hard feelings. It wasn't like necessarily he was doing anything bad or hurtful. It was just, after a period of time, I'm like, wow, I feel very exhausted after getting off the phone with you. I feel like you have used so much of my time and my energy that I could have been giving to myself. And now that's it.
And that's the thing. We can't do it. If you only call me when you need something, or you only call me to complain or to solve a problem, or this is the other thing that this person was doing, if you only call me to flex about your accomplishments, that is weird to me. That does not work for me.
They did that all the time.
And it was like, either like I'm calling, I can't do that. I can't do that.
The funny thing is this particular person would call me to flex and to brag about themselves, which again, we have to be happy for other people's successes. Cause I know we just said that in the part before, but also know the time in the other person's life. At the time when he was having his big come up in life,
especially financially,
I was really struggling financially. It was during COVID. We had no events.
Was like the beginning of COVID when things were bad.
I was very stressed out. I didn't really know how we were going to pay our bills. Like things obviously we came out and we're okay right now, but that was a really hard time. And I was like, why are you calling me to talk about all of the money that you're making and he knew, you know that I'm not doing well. And so those things, and I don't think he was doing it on purpose to make me feel bad, but also
self-awareness.
The fact that you weren't aware enough to know, I'm not going to call Kelsi and talk to her about this because, and consistently, if you call me one time because you're really excited and I'm the person you want to share things with because we have a good friendship, fine. But it was a lot.
No, it was happening all the time. That's so important too. Like if you want to be a good friend or have a good friendship, like know where somebody's at in their life and know what they're going through. Like there's a time and place for things.
Because we really were close friends and you did know my situation.
And like, there's a time like when we're all sharing good news, of course, but like if someone's fucking down bad, like don't be doing that. That's like, it's just a natural respect.
If you show up and there's a friend who's going through a breakup and you just gone to a lovey-dovey happy relationship,
now's not the
rub
time.
it in their
now
face.
Is not
That's
the
not
time.
it. So like let them be.
Yeah, no, that is so true. I actually there was one time where I was like this was years ago. I was like 18. I was super heartbroken over this guy and I went, like called my friend crying and she was like, yeah, okay. And so I meet up with her and then she brings her boyfriend and they're like making out. And I'm like, this was literally, this was not the time. I'm like heartbroken. Yeah. So it's things like that. It's just
not the time or place. People.
And I was like, really right now you needed that right now this second? And I left. But definitely just like a little bit of self-awareness, like think about other people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Get outside yourself a little bit.
Get outside yourself.
But when people aren't treating you good, then get inside yourself.
Yeah, it's a balance. And you have to remember too, like it's a give and take. So like, what do you want to receive? If you want, whatever you want to receive, you have to give more of.
Yeah.
If you're like, wow, I have so much room for friends in my life, then you need to go, you need to be more giving.
I love when you say it.
Sometimes we have room for friends.
Yeah, I have a lot of room for friends and I don't want them.
Well, you don't have room because you don't want them. But like, if you're like, I really want to like make new friends, then, you have to kind of say, you have to reach out and you have to make that effort.
I will say that because there was a period of time where I was like, I'm not doing anything and I'm not seeing any friends. And I'm like, but I actually have some good friends and I need to. So I started to reach out.
Yeah.
And then made them feel more comfortable where they're like, then they started to reach out to me. And so then we had a normal dynamic, but it took me a minute where I'm like, oh, the friends aren't just showing up on my doorstep. So like, even though I don't want to have all the friends in the world, I like the ones that I have.
Right.
I still had to put in the work.
Totally.
To see them and care about what was going on in their lives.
Yeah. And I think if you have like a unique situation, just like express it. Like my girlfriends know, like, I can't be out with you really ever anymore. Like I'm not at the club anymore. I'm not like out doing things all the time just because like I've been really locked in. But they know, like, text me when you need something. It might take me a while to respond, but I'm going to be there for you. Or if you need, something like a connection, like know like what your friends are kind of good for. Like I still try to show up as a good friend, but I just know that right now it's not going to look like time.
The same as it
it's not going to look the same as it did before.
Well,
I used to have a lot more time.
Physical time. Because you said you'll FaceTime with
we
like
can
your friends
FaceTime or something, or maybe we can do a trip together or something like that. But it's like, it's not going to look like consistent, like we're doing things all the time or we're going out. Like, I don't know, like people go through phases in their life too. I think it's being aware of those moments and like, you can't hold somebody to who they used to be. Like you have to understand that people evolve, relationships evolve, dynamics evolve. So it's like, how do we evolve this friendship so that we're both still happy, but like, so that we're not keeping each other to a standard of like from years ago. Because that's not fair either.
No,
So
I agree.
That's my 2 cents.
It was like 6 cents, but
Oh,
I had like 10 cents. I had all the cents to give. Yeah.
you have all the cents.
I have all the cents to give.
Okay, well, we will stop rambling for you guys. And
Oh my gosh, I needed a sexy.
you didn't do one?
Go first. I'll think of something.
Okay, my sexy this week is when someone's really talented at something, like girl or guy, just like when someone's like really good at something. You know what I mean? I just think that's dope. Like, I think that's very fire.
Wow,
like,
that's a good one. I'm going to piggyback off that.
yeah, like I think it's so cool when someone's like has this hobby or this secret hidden talent or something like that.
Yeah.
Or it's just something that they're like focused on, passionate about, and they're just like good at. I'm like, that's cool. I like that for you.
Okay, that's
it.
good. I like
So you're
that.
going to take that?
No, I wasn't.
How come you never took the one when I said the holidays?
Well, that's because that's not something sexy at all. You can love the holidays. You can think, like, if you find summer to be like a sexy vibe,
Yeah.
because it's like
You don't think the
tans
holidays are?
No. Like, if anything, I get really chubby because I eat too much. Like, I am cold. I'm wearing like lots. Well, actually, wear my turtleneck sweater. So
That's true. There you go.
No, the holidays are not sexy.
Fine.
You can love them, but they're
Hater.
not. They're like ho ho ho, jolly
Well,
jolly.
I just think like a talent or like if you could just do something. I think that's so cool. If you're like, I can fix this car. Like,
yeah, I gotta
fire.
tell you, like anything I ask Mans, he's like, I'm like, wait, are you really good at that? And he's like,
yeah.
yeah, like he's just
I
he's
love that
good at
for him.
but he puts the work in to
Yeah.
be good. It's also like it's not like he just
Yeah.
he tries things a couple times and he cares about being good at
Like
things.
he can do things.
Yeah.
See, that I love that.
He
Because
can
I'm like,
do
you
a
can
lot of
do
things.
There was one time, I went on a date with this one guy and I think, what happened? Did I lose? Was it my tire? Something happened to my tire. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
And then we pulled over and he fixed my tire. I was like, whoa. It was so impressive. Like that relationship didn't go anywhere, but I was just like really shocked.
That's sad. I wish it would have.
Okay. But like that really, like I was just really impressed. I was like, oh my God, you can do, like, I just think it's cool when somebody like knows how to do something and can just do it, you know? I'm like, thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I'm trying to think if like I should have like I just like don't have a. It's really hard because we have to come up with one every week.
Yeah. So you have nothing. Well, you kind of stole mine. I think that's fine. We'll just call it that for this time. Do better next week.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like when men can like do shit,
Yeah. Fix my tire.
do some manly things. Like Mans gets out. I always say Mans, and he always asks me, he's like, "How come you haven't said my name on the podcast?" I'm like, I don't know, because like if you
No,
follow
but
me on
'cause at this
Instagram,
point-
you can find you.
No,
It's not like it's your.
You can't say it
secret.
though because at this point it's a
It's
thing.
just
Because I had dinner with one of my best friends last night and he brought it up to me. He was like, "Mans," and I was like, "It's a thing now."
Someone texted me and said, "Oh, you're Mans," and I was like,
It's a thing.
This has now become a thing." And the thing is I'm not trying to keep him a secret. He's on my Instagram. You can go look at him.
We
but
know
now,
he's not like a.
But now, but he did
mistress.
ask me. He goes, "How come you aren't saying my name?" I'm like,
No.
I don't know. It just started off that way, and then I kept
Yeah.
saying Mans.
And then it just went that way. No, I'm here for it, and now we have to keep it because it's like. a
Yeah,
thing.
no, it's so funny. But
it.
yeah, he can like do things, and like he always says, he goes, it's a common law that when something goes wrong in the car, all the men have to get out of the car to see what's going on.
That's funny.
Even if you don't know what you're doing,
Yeah.
you still have to get out and support the men.
See, I didn't grow up around like it was just me and my mom.
Yeah.
Like I don't have cousins, brothers, uncles, whatever.
Yeah.
So I just like I think like maybe my bar is really low because I'm always like, oh my God, you can change
no,
a tire.
but it's LA. But like when like men, when something's going wrong,
Yeah.
all the men in my family, even if none of them know what they have to do, if it's only
Yeah.
one of them, you get out and you support.
See,
The men
I
get out.
appreciate that.
Okay, so this week's sexy is men doing shit.
Yeah, they do it. Or like, we hire our guy who like mounts all of our stuff. And so like even him, like not in like a romantic way at all, but I just mean like when he just fixes everything, he's like, oh, I'm gonna nail this down for you. Like he mounted my trash or something. I don't know.
Yes.
I was like and like he's like, I'm gonna fix this shelf and I'm gonna fix this. And I
He
was like,
fixed my
God
door
bless.
one time.
Yeah, I was like, thank
because
you.
the door was squeaking and it was making a noise, and he just like threw a little bit of WD-40 soap in. Is that what it's called? Okay. What the
fuck is that?
He threw a little WD-40 on it.
That is. What is that?
You guys, Sobin's laughing at us right now, but
Because he could probably do all these things.
Yeah, he for sure
My bar
can.
is on the floor.
Sobin 100% could do all the stuff that we're saying.
My bar is on the floor, but you know what? They are still sliding under it. So, because, oh my God, when I moved into, never mind, I can't get in the story, but I can't talk about that. But like, I just mean like, it's just so helpful. I remember he was like, I'm going to fix the shelf. I'm going to mount this for you. I'm going to mount your TV. I was like, oh, what? You're going to do all of that for me?
My stepdad came down and to see me for a football game, and my toilet seat was like moving.
And he fixed it.
He came out of the bathroom. He's like, your toilet seat was moving around in there. I just fixed it for you really quick. I was like, did you need a tool? He's like, no, I just did it with my hand. I was like, what? You just did it?
No, trust me, I feel.
Did it with your hand?
I feel it's a big day.
It's great.
I just learned how to put air in my tire. And so now I feel like very...
Yeah,
it's proud of myself.
It's a nice feeling when you learn how to do things, but it's also really nice too, like
when somebody else does it.
When men do men shit.
Yeah, I love that. Go to war.
Okay, we're done. We're wrapping this shit up. You guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Please rate, review, subscribe. Maybe not this episode, but maybe rate some other ones. We are on YouTube. Go subscribe to our channel. I'm really obsessed with the YouTube. I don't know why, because I'm like so anti-social media in general.
Yeah,
so like,
but it's fun.
I'm super excited to like have a YouTube channel. I don't know why. I'm like an old woman who just started a gardening channel.
Okay, you guys, you can find us on Instagram at Smart is Sexy. Thank you.
Bye.